What is the Nikon D7100? The Nikon D7100 is an update of the now 3-year-old Nikon D7000. Although the D7000 arrived at a time when many weren't expecting it, as Nikon had the enthusiast DSLR market relatively well catered for with the D90 and D300/D300S, it proved incredibly popular with its match of features and form. Nikon is looking to repeat the trick again with the Nikon D7100. Nikon has once again grouped together a host of features found across its DSLR stable and combined them with revisions, including the updated sensor, added video features and new autofocus (f) module among others. Nikon D7100 Design. On first impressions, Nikon has chosen to maintain the enthusiast DSLR template adopted in the D7000. The Nikon D7100 feels solid, with a blend of magnesium alloy and polycarbonate creating a hardy yet lighter-weight shell. While it might not be as sturdy as, say, the Nikon D800, the body more than matches the D7100's enthusiast billing. New additions and modifications to the Nikon D7100 include a new I button on the rear of the camera, along with the relocation of the video record button to the model's top plate. The top plate itself is essentially the very same as that found on the Nikon D600, bar the microphones on the camera's top plate. The mode dial and the drive mode dials have the same locking button mechanism as the D600. It's a useful way to stop them being accidentally rotated, but they're a pain to use. Nikon D7100 Features. At the core of the Nikon D7100 sits a DX format sensor with a resolution of 24.1 MP, much like the Nikon D5200, although it's important to point out that the two sensors are not the same. The sensor found here sees Nikon omit the anti-aliasing filter with a view towards better detail retention, although there can be issues with false color patterning as a result of the aforementioned absence. The sensor itself has exactly the same ISO sensitivity range as that found on the Nikon D7100, running from ISO 100/6400 and extendable to ISO 25600. The sensor also supports Full HD video capture at a resolution of 1920 by 1080 at up to 30 fps, or up to 60 fps if you're prepared to shoot at standard HD resolution of 720p. A pair of onboard microphones adds stereo sound support, and there's a mix socket to fit an external one, too. The camera applies a 1.5x crop factor to any attached lens. For example, a 50mm prime will turn into a 75mm when attached. There's also a 1.3x crop factor mode at a reduced 15.4 MP, versus 24.1 MP native, for improved performance with attached lenses. With this mode active, said 50mm lens would behave like a 98mm optic, should you so wish. Other new features include a new autofocus module, which has 51 f-points with 15 cross-type f-points, a boost from 39 and 9 found in the D7000, that promises to bring a better level of performance to the enthusiast. The Nikon D7100 also has the XP3 imaging engine, the same as in the Nikon D4, which means it takes an impressive 6 frames per second. There are a few completely new features that debut on the Nikon D7100, too. One of these is spot white balance, which lets you set the camera's white balance for the whole scene from picking just one area of the scene. Another is the redesigned LCD screen that Nikon's has been rolling out across its cameras of late, which lacks the air gap found on previous models and promises clearer images. Nikon D7100 Performance. The Nikon D7100 is clearly a very well thought out and put together DSLR. Its new screen is a major plus. It's not just the larger than average 3.2-in LCD screen, as well as the 1224K resolution, but bright, vivid colors and outstanding viewing angles. It's as clear as any DSLR screen going. The viewfinder is just as good, so you always get a clear idea of what you're shooting and the end result. As you'd hope for a DSLR pitched at enthusiast photographers, the D7100 is pleasingly prompt and responsive in use. One flick of the power switch has the camera prepared and ready for image capture in an instant. The only real slowdown comes when shooting to RAW files to the memory card. A single image is no problem, but if you go to shoot a second file there is a slight delay before it's displayed on the screen. It's also worth noting that the D7100 has a slightly limiting raw burst depth of just 6 frames, despite having a raw burst speed of 6 fps. This means you'll encounter slowdown when shooting a burst of images in just a second, and while you should be able to capture the image you need in that period, it's far from desirable. Nikon D7100, image quality. As you'd expect from a Nikon DSLR, and especially a Nikon DSLR aimed towards the enthusiast photographer, the D7100 generally takes great photos. It produces accurate and lifelike colors. The auto white balance system rarely struggles. The only situation in which it does is in scenes little color in them. It is, however, easy to avoid the cooler results in these situations by selecting the Auto 2 AWB mode provided by Nikon, which offers warmer results as standard. Exposures are very good, too. The Nikon D7100 copes with almost all shooting situations with aplomb, and when it does appear to struggle the active delighting manages shadows just fine. The high-resolution sensor and absence of any anti-aliasing filter means that the Nikon D7100 resolves an impressive level of detail. Technical testing revealed that at ISO 100 the level of detail resolved is on a par with the full-frame Sony CyberShot RX1, no small feat. Unfortunately, the story isn't as good as when it comes to image noise, although this is affected by a number of factors. Gritty texture can be seen at settings as low as ISO 400 in most scenes. Although this can be managed, it does